welcome back to Cardboard Journey. My name is Justin, and today I'm going to be doing a deck tech for a TCG currently in development called Wager of Troupes. I'm currently a playtester for the game, so I want to make a playlist of videos on my channel of deck techs and eventually unboxing when this game gets produced. So I'm going to be explaining my thought process behind building this deck. Since this game is still in development, cards are subject to change before official release. This deck revolves around the troupe known as Cirque. The primary theme of Cirque is essentially circus performers, acrobats, fire jugglers, and other similar acts. With this deck, I wanted to build around the stars of the troupe, which is why I call this deck Cirque Stars. First off, I am going to start with the ticket seller, Carnival Barker. Up to 3 times per act, after a card is sabotaged from the stage or center stage, you may add an audience member to the foyer. This is a May ability that is able to be triggered off of each player. In this deck, I am only running just the one. You can have up to 4 copies of each card in this deck. Next, I'm going to go through the cast members, starting with the lowest audience cost that starts at 0 with Clown Harlot. She reads, when playing Juggling the Audience or Fire It Up, this card is considered to have +1 performance value. She is in this deck because although she has 0 performance value, she has Charisma, which adds 1 audience member to the foyer, and she is a Harlequin. There are a couple cards in this deck that play off the Harlequin type. Next at 0 is Stilt Stalker, which is also a Harlequin. This particular cast member has an ability that is essentially Diva Hate. A cast member with the Diva can be bowed to draw a card and sabotage a card from hand. Stilt Stalker denies your opponent from drawing a card after using a Diva ability. Although this is also a 0 performance value cast member, the ability is one that I believe is worth it. Our first cast member at 1 audience cost is Fiery Ringler. While this card is not a Harlequin, it is great to play against someone playing props. Fiery Ringler has the bow ability to sabotage target prop, with the downside of also having to sabotage itself, which isn't necessarily a bad thing because this sabotage also triggers our ticket seller. Second in the 1 audience cost is Sinister Cycler, which in my opinion is a great 4-of in any Cirque deck, as it is only a 1 cost with 2 performance value, although it doesn't have any abilities. Not only that, but it is also Harlequin and Belia. There is a star that buffs Belia types, which we will get into later. The only 2 cost cast member in this deck is also the first star I will be talking about. It's Pogo D'Pogo, another Belia Harlequin. Although it starts as a 0 performance value, Pogo has the ability that every time it is moved to or from center stage, it gives target cast member +2 performance value. So you can swap Pogo from center stage and vice versa with another cast member to trigger his ability. Since he is also a star, during your curtain call, you get to captivate one of your audience members, which is a primary focus of this deck. Although Cirque's primary playstyle is to be aggressive, I wanted to build something more the control style by using the stars to keep my audience members captivated so my opponent is unable to steal them from me. This deck I think goes great against aggressive decks. Next up at the 3 audience cost is Lodus The Mockingbird, which is also a Belia Harlequin that has star and charisma. Keeping up with the theme, Lodus has the ability of, even if this card is bowed, after an opponent targets one of your cast members, this card becomes the target instead. If your opponent attempts to target one of your other cast members, you're able to force the focus onto Lodus, which is a great ability especially if the cast member your opponent is trying to target is one that you really need to complete your strategy. Starting out at the 4 audience cost is Ayreeus. Again, a Belia Harlequin. Has the battle ability. If this card is center stage, sabotage the target opposing cast member that is not center stage with less cost than the number of Harlequin cast members you control. Move this card off stage. Since this deck uses a lot of Harlequins, as long as you have enough cast members on stage with the Harlequin type, this ability can basically target and sabotage any opposing cast members. Amazing card despite having the downside of being moved off stage after using this ability. Although cast members that are off stage can still assist, so it's not a complete loss. Unless you can get Ayreeus back onto stage, you can no longer use his ability. Again, not a huge loss. It's still really powerful. Next up in the 4 audience cost is Liette L'Flamme. She is a Harlequin with Star, Diva, and Charisma. This cast member is why me mentioning the Belia type before is so important. Her static ability gives each Belia cast member +1 performance value. Her ability, however, has no use in this deck as I don't run aristocrats. Definitely not a deal breaker with the rest of the abilities this card provides. Finally, in the 4 audience cost is Vanda Lizzy. Vanda is not a Belia or Harlequin, however her ability while being a star with Diva is very useful. When this card bows while center stage, you may sabotage a target prop. She is like Fire Ringler above, being able to target props, although she doesn't have a downside. All she has to be is in center stage to use her ability. Multiple other stars I'm running also need to be center stage, so knowing which cast member to use center stage and when is very important. Last but not least, our only 5 audience cost cast member is Gran Cirqe. He is the big papa of the Cirque troupe. Once he gets on board, hopefully you have enough of a board state to end the match in one way or another. His ability is one that is very powerful, however has an equally powerful downside. Whenever Gran Cirqe becomes bowed, each player must sacrifice an audience member. Having Diva on at least a couple of your cast members allows you to discard star cast members from your hand while trying to draw cards you need to play. Only one of each cast member with star can be on stage. For example, if you already have Vanda on the stage, you cannot play another Vanda. However, you can play other stars. That is why this build only runs 2 of each star. Now, I'm going to go over props, starting with the costumes. Another card that I believe is a staple 4 of in each Cirque deck is Jester's Makeup. It's a 2 audience cost prop that also counts for Harlequin. Its ability is, this cast member does not bow when they put on a show. Definitely a great defensive and aggressive ability as it allows you to keep cast members unbowed when putting on a show while giving +2 performance value to the cast member it is attached to. Absolutely no downsides in sight. Checquered Garb is the only other costume I'm running in this build. It's a 0 cost that gives +1 performance value, also having no downside. Being able to play a 0 cost cast member with a 0 cost costume on it turn 1 is great, not to mention that it also counts towards Harlequins. Now I'm going to go into props known as sets. The first set is called Shoddy Construction. Attach this set to the opponent's theater and you may sabotage another target set attached to it. Your theater card is blank. You may bow 4 performance value from cast members you control to sabotage this card. This card can be absolutely devastating to certain troops and builds that rely heavily on their theater. Essentially shutting them down and forcing your opponent to bow cast members to remove it is pretty detrimental. Second set is balcony seating. Going along with the strategy of keeping your audience captivated with your star cast members, If you are unable to get enough stars on your stage to keep your audience captivated, this set assists with that. At a 2 audience cost, it is super easy to get out. Third and last set I'm running is High Rise Tightrope. This set is only included to work with another card I'll be explaining later, just to get the card draw off of it. Its other ability doesn't really have a huge impact in this deck since I'm only running a couple acrobats. However, as a last ditch effort, the second ability can come in handy given you have the right cast members on stage. Now, on to the last card type, Qs. Qs are essentially spells that you bow cast members and use performance value to play. The number in the top right shows how much performance value must be paid before playing. The first Q I will be going over is Fire It Up. This card's ability goes with Clown Harlot, as this card gives her +1 performance value. This card's ability is after one of your audience members is stolen, the opponent must bow or sabotage one of their unbowed cast members. If your opponent is playing a super aggressive deck and always stealing your audience members, Fire It Up can cause them to bow or sabotage any cast member they are trying to leave unbowed for defense. Some decks this card can actually help, so be wary of what your opponent is playing to not assist them with their deck strategy. Second is Clown Parade, which is why me having and mentioning Harlequins is so important. Search your playbill for a Cirque cast member with cost X, where X is equal to or less than the number of cards with the Harlequin type that you have on stage. Reveal it and put it into your hand. Essentially, if you have many cast members with the Harlequin type on stage, you can search your deck for any Cirque cast member you may need. This card is so good for this deck, it's why I'm running 4 of it, especially with almost every cast member in this deck being Harlequin. Third Q I'm running in this deck is There's a Sucker Born Every Minute. After your opponent adds an audience member to the foyer from a card effect, take control of an audience member in the foyer. If your opponent is playing a lot of charisma or cards that put audience members into the foyer, this card allows you to take control of that audience member or a audience member. If your opponent is really relying on charisma in their build, this particular Q can slow down and keep them behind tempo. So not necessarily the most amazing card, it can and does have its uses and can be hurtful to certain builds. Fourth Q in this build is called Trapdoor Mishap. You may sabotage a set you control rather than paying this Q's cost. Move target opposing cast member that is on stage to off stage. It does not unbow during that player's next blocking phase. This is the card I was talking about earlier that works with High Rise Tightrope. This combo allows you to sabotage High Rise Tightrope to pay for this Q's cost and draw 2 cards, while moving an opponent's cast member from stage to off stage. Trapdoor Mishap can be pretty devastating to someone running cast members that rely on being center stage for their ability. Just continues to feed into the control style of this build by denying your opponent the use of one of their cast members for a turn. Last card of this build is Standing Ovation. This Q must be performed before showtime. Captivate 2 of your audience members. Combining this card with stars and balcony seating, you shouldn't have any issues keeping your audience captivated long enough to get the win. Like I mentioned earlier, this deck is primarily built to be played against aggressive decks, keeping your opponent unable to steal your audience members while building your board state enough to hopefully get the win from stealing the show from your opponent. If you would like to try this game, I will be providing links in the description of this video to the Instagram and Discord. I don't know how long Discord links last, so if you're interested and the link doesn't work, just leave a comment or reach out to the Instagram page. Please let them know I sent you. I would love to see this great card game blow up and get more players involved. There you have it. My first deck tech for Wager of Troupes. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't already, please subscribe. This is just the first of many videos I plan to release for this game along with normal unboxing once the game is released. And like always, I'll see you next time.